All right, it's time to start really thinking about 2025. This is going to be exciting. I've even color coded the depth chart so you could see who's under contract outright next season in the green, who's an exclusive rights free agent, and who's a restricted free agent. The exclusive rights free agents, and I'll explain all that in a little bit. Those are shaded in blue, and then the restricted free agents will also explain that. They're shaded in this orange color. But you have an overall outlook of the 49ers roster, how they're going to try to piece this together, retool over the offseason. And it just so happens that today is Kyle Shanahan's 45th birthday. Trivia: where was Kyle Shanahan born? What city? You're not allowed to Google this, although I'm sure a lot of you are going to cheat and Google it right now. Maybe you win a prize if you toss Kyle Shanahan's birth city into the comment section. Maybe you won't win a prize. Maybe I'm just doing it for the algorithm. Anyway, for the algorithm, you hit the like and everything will be good. I rarely ask for you to hit the like button, but this time you can, because we're going to be talking about the 2025 49ers roster, how they're going to build this thing. This is the depth chart. I'm copying and pasting this link, and I am going to put it into the YouTube chat section. If you are watching this show on Twitter, or X as they call it, you can head over to YouTube, subscribe there. If you are listening to this show on the podcast, well, then head over to the YouTube channel, head over to the X account, follow there, but obviously go to YouTube so you can take a look at the link. We're probably going to overwhelm the Google Doc. Here's the link at the bottom of the screen. You have to go into the live chat, though, to click on it. I'll put it into the comments section a little bit later. Nobody is guessing Kyle Shanahan's birth city correctly. Until I see the correct guess, then I won't say anything about it. I'm going to wait to see if somebody gets this right. Somebody's going to cheat at some point, so I would expect that to be a correct answer. Anyway, that's the link. It is in the Google, or it's in the, it's not in the Google sheet. The link is in the YouTube description, although Google does own YouTube, so technically it is on Google as well. So the 2025 49ers, the first thing that needs to happen is this team needs some rest. They needs to get healthy. I think a lot of what went wrong in 2024 was an accumulation of all of the mileage that the 49ers had racked up over the course of the past 3 seasons. They had played 60 games in 3 seasons. And yes, I get it. The Kansas City Chiefs had also played 60 games in 3 seasons. But the thing about Kansas City is they had 2 Super Bowl trophies to show for it at the end. They got that boost, and it's a massive psychological boost because, as Steve Young said, it's like climbing Everest. To get back to the pinnacle every single season, it is like climbing Everest, and you need to have that sense of accomplishment to help push you through when your body is tired, when the games have racked up. So I think the Chiefs really benefited from that. I think what we're seeing it on the field and the way that they're able to close some of these games. But the 49ers obviously hadn't benefited from that. It had been gut-wrenching loss after gut-wrenching loss at the end of the postseason for San Francisco. And things really accumulated this year. I think that you go back to the Dre Greenlaw injury in the second quarter of the Super Bowl, tearing his Achilles running out onto the field. Think about it. How much has gone right for the 49ers since that moment? They obviously blew a lead in the Super Bowl. Then they had the NFL draft, which I would argue is the one thing that did go right for the 49ers. But then the offseason featured the contract drama with Brandon Ayuk, which I really do believe damaged the 49ers' 2024 chances. You obviously had the Trent Williams holdout as well. Then you had the Christian McCaffrey Achilles tendonitis that bled into the regular season. Ricky Pearsall got shot in the chest right before the start of the regular season. Tragedy off the field in the families of 2 49ers, Charvarius Ward and Trent Williams. All kinds of injuries. The most money in the NFL on injured reserve for San Francisco. The most brutal schedule of the 2024 season. One of the most brutal schedules in NFL history. The 49ers played more games than anyone ever has with net rest differential this year. So more games facing a team coming off its bye while the 49ers themselves are not coming off a bye, and their net rest differential was absolutely atrocious. The NFL did not do the 49ers any favors. And combine that with the fact that it was a first place schedule, and you have the perfect storm for an unraveling for the 49ers. If they were going to get this done in 2024, they were going to need to win those close games early on. And those are the games that they blew. If there's something that was in the 49ers' control that they could have accomplished that they didn't to overcome all of the adversity that was out of their control, it was beating the Rams in week 3. They were a lot better than the Rams then. The Rams had so many injuries, but they blew that game. Beating the Cardinals in week 5. They had a fourth quarter lead at home against Arizona on that hot day at Levi's Stadium. And beating the Seattle Seahawks. That was coming out of the bye week, and that was another fourth quarter lead that the 49ers blew at Levi's Stadium. They also could have beaten the Rams on Thursday, but at that point, the probability was already low. I think that you could point at any number of plays that they weren't able to execute against the Rams. But again, at that point, they had already looked at all these NFC West defeats at home, 4 blown fourth quarter NFC West leads, 0-3 at home against the division. I mean, just bad stuff across the board of the whole season for the 49ers. And that put them in a position where they were unable to dig themselves out of all the adversity that wasn't their fault. So a lot conspired, but that's what it is. This is professional sports. Some years are good, some years are bad. You've got to focus on the future in professional sports once your current season does end up in a spot where it doesn't look like it's going to go to the postseason. Now, there's a minute chance it's probably under 1%, but right now we're going to be talking about the future. Anyway, position by position, the 49ers, as you could tell, a lot of starters are already under contract for next season. It's the depth that San Francisco is going to have to replenish this offseason. And yes, they do plan to pay Brock Purdy. Also, yes, they plan to pay Brock Purdy a big contract. People are going to go on idiotic tangents over the next days or months or however long it is until Purdy signs his contract. He's eligible for it in about a month. He's eligible for it right after the regular season ends in early January. But people will be talking about $60 million per year, $55 million per year, $52 million per year. Whatever number they toss out there, that is average per year. And let me tell you something, it doesn't really matter. It is a vanity number, and there might be some surface level posturing from both sides in this deal once it's finally done. The Dallas Cowboys most recently awarded Dak Prescott $60 million a year. That is the high watermark in the NFL. The way that these contracts have been going over the past couple of years is that many of them have one up the previous high watermark. Maybe this Brock Purdy contract one ups the high watermark, but I'll tell you what, a $62 million per year contract in the NFL could be a worse deal than a $54 million per year contract. How is that? Because the overall average can have a whole lot of funny money, a whole lot of money that is not guaranteed that a team can back out of. The strength of a contract is determined by the guarantees, namely the fully guaranteed money. So we're going to look to see how much fully guaranteed Brock Purdy gets and how the 49ers structure the deal. And then we're going to see how they structure the roster outside of Brock Purdy. And that's going to take some salary cap maneuvering. And I think that obviously comes in conjunction with looks at value at each respective position. So without further ado, let's take a look at this. At the quarterback room, speaking of Purdy, I'm zooming in. San Francisco has Brock under contract, and then a player without any color shading here. That means that their contract is set to expire after this 2024 season. I would expect if the 49ers really like the work that Tanner Mordecai has been doing behind the scenes, they can immediately give him a futures contract at the end of the regular season. The futures contract means that the player is on the 90-man roster for 2025. As it stands right now, the 49ers obviously have a 53-man roster. They have a 16-man practice squad with one international exception, so 17 men on the practice squad. That is Isaac Alarcon. And the 49ers have injured reserve, which does not count toward any of those roster counts. Injured reserve, PUP, NFI, although PUP and NFI are currently empty. So that's what the building looks like right now. In the offseason, there will be no injured reserve. There will be no PUP. There will be no NFI. It will just simply expand from 53 to 90. So the very first thing the 49ers will do is sign a handful of players on expiring contracts, the non-marquee names, to reserve future contracts, which will be minimum deals. Somebody like Tanner Mordecai in the quarterback room, I would expect to stay on such a minimum deal. Then you've got Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs. Who are the 49ers going to bring back as a backup in 2024? Well, I'm sure they're interested in bringing Brandon Allen back. We'll see about Josh Dobbs. We'll see about the price points of both, but I wouldn't assume that Brandon Allen's price has really increased over when the 49ers re-signed him for that QB2 role last year. Keep in mind that the 53-man roster here does not include players on injured reserve. Those guys are listed down here. So we can scroll up to the running back position and the fullback position. Isaac Guerendo is going to be on his second year of his rookie deal. Kyle Juszczyk is going to be on the final year of a veteran contract. When the 49ers picked up Israel Abanikanda off of waivers from the New York Jets, he hadn't played yet, hadn't been active yet because he's learning the playbook, but he had 2 years of team control left. So they could, that's a futures contract built in at the very least, right? They can take a look at Abanikanda here over the final 3 games of the regular season. Fast back, remind some people of poor man's Isaac Guerendo as far as the measurables go. He's a few pounds lighter and he's a little bit slower, but he still is a fast guy at a relatively big weight, 216 pounds. So you could look at Abanikanda as a bowling ball. The 49ers can see if they like him, if he can fit their system. He was behind Breece Hall in New York. Braylon Allen and Breece Hall, 2 backs in New York who are obviously talented. So Abanikanda didn't get much play there, but there's a chance that he catches on with the 49ers. The guy that's not listed on this 53-man roster right now is on injured reserve, and that's Christian McCaffrey. The 49ers this season have ranked number 23 in first down rushing efficiency. They ranked number 1 in 2023. So they've gone from number 1 to number 23, and that is indicative of so many different things. One of them being the Kyle Shanahan chess match. First down is the game plan down, so defenses are going to try to stop what they see on tape. So defenses are stopping the runs that they see on tape, but it also means that Kyle Shanahan hasn't been able to outfox defensive coordinators the way that he used to be able to on first down. Now, in fairness to Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers have lost multiple running backs this season. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, is on injured reserve. Jordan Mason is on injured reserve. Elijah Mitchell never even had a chance to play this season. He's on injured reserve. So the 49ers are essentially on option number 4 at the running back position right now, which I'm sure partly explains why it's tumbled down to number 23 in first down run efficiency. But the entire offense has been based on first down run efficiency. Even if you're throwing on first down, the threat of a successful first down run opens things up for the 49ers. That is how Kyle Shanahan's outside zone scheme works. And they have to figure out a return to first down rushing efficiency in 2025. So Guerendo, I've liked what I've seen from him so far. I think that the 49ers can really salivate about a combo of Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo next season. Even if you think that Isaac Guerendo isn't a pure running back yet at this point, he's really new to the position. He's only started, 3 games in his entire career at the position, 1 in college, the bowl game, and 2 in the NFL. He has shown receiving ability out of the backfield. Purdy seems to have some rapport with him. I thought one of the low-key most impressive plays on a day they didn't have all too many impressive plays for the 49ers on Thursday was on the drive where Deebo Samuel ultimately dropped what should have been the touchdown that probably would have won the game for the 49ers. But earlier in that drive, Quentin Lake came in, DB blitz for the Rams, and he was hitting Brock Purdy, and he came kind of from the right side, so it wasn't the blind side, but he did come from the periphery of Brock Purdy's vision, and Purdy was scanning the field. At the very last second, he saw Lake coming in from the right in that peripheral vision, and Purdy was able to very quickly pivot. It was a quick twitch kind of pivot and release the ball to Isaac Guerendo in the flat just as he was being hit. It wasn't an easy play for Brock Purdy, but I think most significantly, It showed that he trusted where Guerrero was going to be. We've seen a pass like that intercepted and returned for a touchdown with Fred Warner picking off Jared Goff in 2019. I'm sure you guys remember Saturday Night Football in 2019, week 16 of that season. Goff decided that he would just safely throw to the flat. Fred Warner said, no throw is safe when I'm out on the field, and he took it back for a huge touchdown. So when we look at the flat throws and the short game and the screen game, which for the 49ers obviously hadn't been as prevalent this year, Kyle Shanahan, I think, hadn't been able to dial it up in a way that is sustainable for San Francisco. It's been better in a couple games, worse in most of the season. But one of the reasons that it is troublesome is because you can't just pitch and catch a screen game or an outlet game. You have to execute it as well. And if you don't execute it, there are way too many good defenders in this league who are ready to pounce on it. So the fact that Purdy and Guerrero are already connecting on those kind of passes, the fact they've already upped the 49ers short passing game in the short time that they've been working together as QB1 and RB1 is a big arrow up for San Francisco, because you will have a healthy Christian McCaffrey next year. And McCaffrey won't have the same type of mileage that he's coming in with this season. Finally, Christian McCaffrey has had a chance to rest. It's going to be, in all likelihood, an extended offseason for the 49ers. And he's still on the right side of 30 years old. He's one of the best players in the National Football League, and you could pair him with Isaac Guerrero in that running back room. So it's going to be McCaffrey, Guerrero, then they'll see what they have out of Abanikanda. Now, there is a wild card name that fans might forget about that is under contract or will be under contract for the 49ers in 2025 at the running back room. And that is Elijah Mitchell. Yes, this was scheduled to be the final year of Elijah Mitchell's rookie deal. But because Mitchell is set to miss the entire season on injured reserve, his contract will toll. By NFL rule, by the collective bargaining agreement rule, Elijah Mitchell's contract will toll into 2025. And this is a big break for the 49ers. Elijah Mitchell is a good back. I know that he has struggled to stay healthy, but you'd rather have talent on your roster than not having talent on your roster. It's an easy decision. Elijah Mitchell has been a very good 49er. Elijah Mitchell showed up in 2021 and in a complete bind with the 49ers seeing so many injuries at the running back position. Elijah Mitchell stepped up as a rookie and nearly delivered a 1,000-yard season. He also fought through 6 different injuries during that 1,000-yard season. So he deserves a lot of credit, because I do believe that the injuries that we've seen downstream from Elijah Mitchell from that 2021 season that have sidelined him might be a product of how hard he fought through the injuries in 2021. So he really sacrificed a lot for San Francisco in that season. Now, because he's out for all of this season, he could be part of this mix next year because his contract will indeed toll for the 49ers. So I expect McCaffrey, Guerrero, Israel Abanikanda, Elijah Mitchell, and who knows, maybe the 49ers add somebody via the draft. If they really like Patrick Taylor Jr. and Keyshawn Vaughn in the building, they might be the extra bodies next year on the practice squad or on the outside looking in. But obviously, you have to insulate yourself for injury. They got one more season of Kyle Juszczyk under contract. He's so important to what this offense does, and I would expect Kyle Juszczyk to remain on the team next year. Moving on to the receiving room. So obviously, Brandon Ayuk is enlisted here. He's down on injured reserve. Ayuk is under contract. I would hope so, because there was a lot of drama required to sign Brandon Ayuk. What we have seen this season is the negative downward domino effect of losing your top X receiver. I hammered this home all year last year, how important Brandon Ayuk was to the offense. Remember, I would show you all the charts, and he'd be in the very upper right. He'd be an outlier. Separation grade was great. Blocking grade was great. Ayuk put together an elite season in 2023, and that's what got him paid in 2024. He was anything but elite coming out of the hold-in this season, and then he tore his ACL. For the 49ers to be a number one efficiency offense, for any offense to be a number one efficiency offense, I think that you have to command the X receiver position. Losing Ayuk and the space that he created, beating any type of coverage from X, had a negative downward effect on the offense, and it was compounded by the fact that Christian McCaffrey was not available either, or was in and out of the lineup at best for the 49ers, and now he's out of it. The 49ers all of a sudden beat two gravitational forces. That they missed two gravitational forces on their offense, and everybody else had to slide into a different role. Juwan Jennings has played the F, the Z, and the X for the 49ers this season. Ricky Pearsall, well, they're saying baptism by fire. You better be ready to go sooner rather than later because of all these injuries. Deebo Samuel, well, we know that he's having the worst year of his career. And I don't think that it's unrelated to the fact that the 49ers have had to shuffle into different positions in that receiving room. If Deebo Samuel is having to run similar route concepts to what your ex typically runs, just because you feel you're not getting that same threat, well, then that means that Deebo Samuel is not going to be doing what he's best at, and that is bulldozing people. He's having to separate more. He's having to play more in the style of a standard receiver. And I think that's why we've seen an overall downtick in receiving production for the 49ers this year. So first things first for 2025. Brandon Ayuk, he tore more than his ACL. There was other damage in the knee, which isn't great news for a potential recovery for Brandon Ayuk as far as getting ready for week one. So the 49ers have to hope, and he's got to work hard, that they get him back as soon as possible and as close to full strength as possible. It might have been a separate injury to Dre Greenlaw, the Achilles, but Achilles injuries typically are known to be more damaging now than ACLs. And the fact that Dre didn't look like he missed a step in his return with those 8 tackles in the first half, that can give some optimism that the 49ers get a premier version of Brandon Ayuk back. But we see why that contract stalemate lasted so long, and we see why the 49ers were ultimately intent on keeping Ayuk in the building, and that is because it's so damn important to the entire complexion of the offense for that position to be generating the separation that it does. Probably the most alarming stat of this entire 49ers season for the offensive side of the ball has been the fact that they average the least separation at catch or at the time of incompletion than any team in the NFL. 3.0 yards. 3.1, the Dallas Cowboys are second to last. Last season, the 49ers ranked number 11. This season, they're number 32. So obviously, they've struggled to separate. Obviously, there is an Ayuk dependence here, which is why they paid him what they did. And obviously, they're hoping that he's back sooner rather than later next year. Juwan Jennings remains on the bargain price. So, I mean, he might even command another extension this season if the 49ers want to go play with some cap numbers, and that could actually push his salary cap hits back and save them money in the short term. But right now, on a deal of about $9 million a year, Juwan Jennings is a bargain for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel is always the interesting case. That's the one that everybody's been talking about. Last week was a terrible week for Deebo Samuel. He goes from tweeting that he needs the ball more, which isn't a good thing for any clubhouse or locker room culture, to dropping what might have been the winning touchdown pass in that game against the Rams. His yards per carry is the lowest of his career. Many of his advanced receiving metrics, the lowest of his career. He's actually last in the entire NFL in yards after contact or yards above expectation, rushing yards over expectation, which includes yards over contact and also takes into account the GPS tracking to see what a typical running back would pick up. So Deebo Samuel still has his speed. We know that he still has his speed because we watched the burst. We watched the speed on some really nice kickoff returns this year. But does he have the foot quickness? Does he have the strength that he used to have? Do the 49ers believe that even if that's not quite there this season, that he could rebound and have it next season? That is the big question surrounding Deebo Samuel and whether or not he's going to be part of this receiving room. I always think of the receiving room as something that the 49ers need to build to be tailored to Brock Purdy, because Purdy's the franchise quarterback. He's a really good quarterback, but let's think about how the 49ers can best suit his weaponry to meld with the way that he throws. And somebody like Jimmy Garoppolo, who had an ultra quick release, 49ers had a terrible offensive line there. Then the line was worse in pass protection than it is now. 2021 season, it was about Jimmy Garoppolo getting rid of the football to somebody like Deebo Samuel. And then Deebo Samuel would run after shorter plays, shorter catches. So Purdy obviously is holding onto the ball longer than Garoppolo. He's throwing downfield more often than Garoppolo. And that means that you need some downfield separation more often than Garoppolo's receivers needed downfield separation. And for that reason, the 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall. I thought he really started to separate this past game. It was Purdy who actually underthrew him on the deep pass in the fourth quarter. They believe Jawan Jennings can separate, but I think that they would rather him separating not in the context of the pure X receiver role, but maybe more in the context of the Z or the F receiver. They drafted Jacob Cowing because they thought that he might be able to separate, especially on some double moves. We saw that work against the Kansas City Chiefs earlier this year, so maybe we see more of Cowing down the stretch. But I think that this offseason, it's going to be really important, especially if Brandon Ayuk is not back for week 1, that the 49ers get development from Pearsall and Cowing, their two 2024 draft picks at receiver, so that they can raise the level of depth in the receiving room, which is currently dealing with a lot of adversity. And as long as Brandon Ayuk is on the sideline, as long as he's on injured reserve, there is plenty of adversity. I've got to turn the oven to 350 degrees, guys. We are hosting a Christmas party. That's why I'm back in the studio in Nashville. Lombardi herself just asked me, can you please turn the oven to 350 degrees? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the roster up, and I'm going to be back in like a second. Just give me maybe 10 seconds as I turn the oven to 350. All right, I am back. The oven is preheating. Hopefully the house doesn't burn down, but we're working on it right now. 350 degrees. It should be there in a bit. Lombardi herself will be happy that that is taken care of. Okay, here we go. Let's move on. I'm talking about where were we? The receiving room? Yes, the receiving room. So if Ayuk is not ready to go or is not 100% by week 1, the development of Pearsall and Cowing is going to be absolutely imperative. Now, remember, at any position that we're talking about right now, the NFL draft is going to be a potential spot of addition for the 49ers, even receiver. So just keep in mind that that's where the 49ers are at this very moment. Tight end, boy, it's been tough sledding for San Francisco trying to find somebody to complement George Kittle. They tried to poach Brock Wright from the Detroit Lions this past offseason, and the Lions said no. He was a restricted free agent, which meant that the 49ers could tender him, but that the Lions could match that offer, and the Lions did, and they kept Brock Wright, and that would have been a good tight end too for the 49ers. Eric Saubert was only on a 1-year contract, so we'll see if they go to a different veteran next year. Jake Tonjes and Braden Willis are both listed in blue here because they are exclusive rights free agents. And what that means is that the 49ers can offer them a tender, which is basically the league minimum. And those two players have to sign it if they want to play in the NFL this next season. So the 49ers have contractual control over Jake Tonjes and Braden Willis. I think that they love the way that Jake Tonjes has developed his body. Yeah, he turned from a practice squad player to a fringe 53-man player. Can he take yet another step next season? Cal fans would be happy about that. Tonjes is a former Golden Bear. So we'll see how that goes. But I do know that the tight end position could really, really use an augment for George Kittle. You know, just another tight end to take some of the load off of George, who I think the 49ers might re-sign this offseason. He's got another year under contract, but if you are able to re-sign him now, well, it's just value at the tight end position. The market there caps out at about 15 million. The receiver market caps out at what, 35 million? George Kittle delivers as a wide receiver one. His production in the receiving market would command somewhere in the mid-20s to 30 million a year itself, just the receiving production. So with Kittle as good as he is for the price that he's at, it makes sense to re-sign him earlier, especially since he's been one of the standouts for the 49ers this year. He is on track for yet another 1,000-yard receiving season. I believe he's at 863 right now. All right, then it's the offensive line. How are the 49ers going to rebuild this offensive line or continue working on this entire front? Well, Trent Williams has been re-signed, and they need him to get healthy. He's obviously been dealing with the tragedy at home as well. So I think Trent still has a lot of good football in him. He'll be back at training camp next offseason. Maybe that helps him be a little bit more ready for the season. I mean, I told you his tongue was cramping in week one. I don't know, your tongue could cramp, but his tongue was cramping in week one. I mean, the no training camp, it's a big deal, especially for somebody who's 320 pounds. He remains a fixture at left tackle. He wants to continue delivering at a Hall of Fame level throughout the course of the next few years, and that's great for the 49ers. Aaron Banks, who has regressed this season, is a pending free agent for the 49ers. So what do they do at left guard? Dominic Purdy has done a great job taking over that right guard position. Colton McKivitz has improved at right tackle. But do the 49ers, I mean, do they draft a tackle this year? They're going to have a higher draft pick than they have in recent seasons. Is this the season that they do finally find somebody in the NFL draft within their grasp with a first-round pick who can fill in one of the tackle spots? If they do that, McKivitz remains under contract, and McKivitz has played guard for this team before. You could theoretically move Dominic Purdy to left guard and Colton McKivitz to right guard if you do draft a tackle. I also would say don't forget about Spencer Burford. Spencer Burford, you know, I might even put his name on the left side here because Spencer Burford filled in for Ben Barch against the Chicago Bears a couple weeks ago, and he looked like much more of a natural at the left guard position than at right guard, which is where he started in 2022 and 2023. So I think that there is real possibility that the 49ers give Spencer Burford a chance to audition for the left guard spot, assuming they don't bring back Aaron Banks. And if that's the case, then Dominic Purdy would be able to stand pat at right guard for the 49ers. It all depends on what they can possibly bring into that right tackle position. Now, the most intriguing one to me is center. Jake Brendel is still under contract for the 49ers for the 2025 season, but he has regressed. And Shanahan in the past had always treated center as a priority position. Up until the Brendel takeover following Alex Mack's 1 year with the 49ers, it was Mack, and before that, the 49ers signed Weston Richburg to big money. Center handles the protections in this scheme. Center handles a lot of very difficult run blocks in this scheme. I think that it is the focal point of the offense. It snaps to the quarterback, and I think that Kyle Shanahan is going to think long and hard, and he's going to try, if he can, to bring in a plus center in this offseason. I think that would immediately help give the 49ers some offensive stability. Now look at the defensive line for San Francisco. The front four haven't been bad this year. The front four are all under contract moving forward. Bosa, Malik Collins, 1 more year. They picked him up with 2 years of team control in the trade with Houston. Jordan Elliott, they signed him to a 2-year deal. They signed Leonard Floyd to a 2-year deal. So this window of defensive linemen, the 49ers actually are not in a bad spot. They also signed Yetur Gross-Matos, who's essentially one of their starting four now. You know, I could even Yetur and Floyd rotate. Bosa and when Yetur is in all the time and Floyd is in all the time, that means that Bosa's hurt. But Yetur was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He's obviously going to be somebody that the 49ers keep around. The 2-year deal was really interesting because it featured a league minimum salary in year 1, and it balloons up to $9 million in year 2 for Yetur. I think it's a perfect opportunity for the 49ers to possibly restructure him and in doing so, re-sign him for the longer term. The inside-out versatility that we've seen from Yetur Gross-Matos gives me Arden Key vibes. It gives me Charles Omenihu vibes. And obviously, he did win that NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Other players in that D-line room, Kalia Davis, under contract. Sam Okawanu is going to be an exclusive rights free agent, so they can bring him back at close to the minimum. Same thing with Evan Anderson. I would expect the 49ers to make both of those maneuvers to keep both of those guys around through at least the offseason on the D-line. Then there's Javon Hargrave, who is not listed here. So Hargrave has just taken a pay cut for his 2025 salary. It wasn't guaranteed anyway. So this was just a move that sets the 49ers up with some flexibility. I think that this sets the table for a potential renegotiation with Javon Hargrave. For now, it lowers the cap hit for the coming season. Hargrave, don't get me wrong, Hargrave has been a productive player for the 49ers. He has not been a great one. But, for example, in the game that he got hurt against the Rams in week 3, he had 6 pressures. So maybe they approach Hargrave the same way that they approached Eric Armstead last year when Armstead had the availability issues, and they'll say, hey, this is our price, take it or leave it. If you don't want it, we'll cut you. So Javon Hargrave is probably, I would think, you might be in the same boat when the 49ers look at what to do financially. And there's a good chance that he doesn't like what the 49ers offer, and he'll say, no, just release me, and that will be that with Javon Hargrave. But he's not a bad pass rusher, never has been a bad pass rusher, was an elite pass rusher with the Eagles, hadn't quite been at that level in his time with the 49ers, but still a person that at the right price you would be happy to keep around. Linebacker position, the big one right here, Dre Greenlaw, who I've got to stick into the Devondre Campbell's role. Let's get him in there. Now, I can't take Devondre Campbell off the roster entirely because he's still technically there. So what we're going to do is put Devondre Campbell in the second column, and we're going to shade him in red. And then what's red? A deserter? Yeah, I guess he deserted the team. Quitter? What's the red shade? What do people want for the red shade? How are we going to label Devondre Campbell walking off of the field during the game against the Los Angeles Rams with everything on the line? Anyway, the most popular tag is asterisk retired. We'll put asterisk retired because it has an asterisk. That's funny. Asterisk retired for Devondre Campbell. I mean, we could put quitter too. I'm looking through some of the suggestions. It could be quitter or asterisk retired. Either way, Campbell moves out of the starting lineup. And as you can see here, the hole for the 49ers is that Dre Greenlaw is not under contract beyond this season. So if you're San Francisco, I think that's a priority re-sign. You can even execute it now if you're the 49ers. He's eligible now as a vested veteran for a contract extension. That's the first thing you had to see was, and maybe you want to see 2 games of it. Maybe you want to see how he bounces back from one performance. But Dre Greenlaw had his burst back. For him to do that after tearing his Achilles in February, 10 months later, 305 days later, that's world-class athlete kind of stuff. And it should give the 49ers real optimism to bring back Dre Greenlaw, one of the heart and souls of this defense. Warner Winters still under contract. Flanagan Foles, wouldn't be surprised that they brought him back on a 1-year deal as a special teams guy and as a reserve linebacker. He's been on a lot of 1-year deals already with this team. And then there's the secondary. So this is interesting. The secondary is actually the position group that has the most current players on the 53-man roster who are not under contract for next season. A lot of green and even blue, which is the exclusive rights free agent, which is essentially somebody the 49ers can keep around if they want to. In all the other position groups except for the secondary, They recently re-signed Diamador Lenore to start taking care of that problem. Renardo Green, second-round draft pick. He's a fixture for the future for the 49ers. Then the question is, I know Charvarius Ward has not had as good of a year. We all know the tragedy that Charvarius Ward has had to deal with the loss of his 1-year-old daughter, Amani Joy. So, I mean, Mooney is somebody the 49ers might bring back and say, he was grieving this year. This was a tough season. He was an all-pro the year before. He's a great locker room guy. He was one of the players who, eloquently spoke out against Devondre Campbell. It was Ward and George Kittle. And I thought it was really important from a leadership role for the 49ers. So maybe you are able to bring Charvarius Ward back at a rate that fits you, which didn't initially appear possible because he was that all-pro the year before. But you can never have too many good cornerbacks if you're the 49ers. Ward and Talanoa Hufanga are two all-pro caliber players. Hufanga earned that all-pro in 2022, who I think the 49ers should be very interested in bringing back. I think Jair Brown has struggled this year. I think Malik Mustafa has been really good as a rookie, but that safety position is so important. 49ers have learned that many, many times. And if they can bring back Greenlaw, Hufanga, and potentially even Ward this offseason, I would say if they could bring back two of those three names, that would be a win for San Francisco. They've got to do that all within the structure of the salary cap. So, and then Pepper and Moody, those guys in the specialist room, are both under contract. So that's the 49ers roster. That is the overview of the whole thing. Again, if you want to go check this out, I have the link right here. I'm going to pop it over into the chat section. And you can go look for yourself. Green, those are players under contract. Blue, those are players who are exclusive rights free agents who the 49ers should have no trouble keeping around. And then we have the orange color. Those are the restricted free agents. Both of them are still on injured reserve. And I know at the running back room, I didn't mention Jordan Mason earlier on. Maybe I should. The reason I didn't mention him is because he was down here on injured reserve along with Christian McCaffrey. But Mason is a possibility to tender as a restricted free agent. That's how it works. You can give him a first-round tender, a second-round tender, or an original round tender. Well, the tender, though, for Jordan Mason may be something the 49ers think twice about, or at least think long and hard about, because of what they have coming back in that room. Between McCaffrey, Garendo, Abanaconda, I don't know if he's going to impress them or not. We'll see. I mean, the last few games here are going to be a gauge of a lot. The 49ers already will have quite a bit of resources tied up into the running back room. Tendering Jordan Mason might cost them about $5 million. Jordan Mason obviously hadn't been the type of receiver that even Isaac Garendo is. So does he fit the way that they want with Christian McCaffrey? I think that at the current rate, Jordan Mason at a rookie deal rate, cap hit of less than $1 million per year, it's a no-brainer for San Francisco. But at a higher rate, especially something, that'd be 5x that at a $5 million tender, which is what it might take for Jordan Mason, I think that there's going to be a lot more discussion for the 49ers in that regard. So, yeah, Jordan Mason might be gone. It's all going to depend on priorities for the 49ers at that RFA position. And then Curtis Robinson, who's their Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee this season, he's also a restricted free agent. So the RFA process is simple, or for some it might be complicated. I don't think it's all that complicated, but it gets complicated if teams start bidding. You tender somebody at a preset amount. So it's either a first-round tender, a second-round tender, or the original round tender of where they were drafted. And other teams then have a chance to offer them more. And then if another team does offer that player more, you can come in and sign them to the contract that other teams offered. So with Brock Wright and the Detroit Lions last year, the Lions the Lions put the original round tender on Brock Wright, or was it might have been even a lower tender than that. But anyway, they put the tender on Brock Wright. They offered him a contract. They had the right of first refusal with that RFA tender. 49ers offered Wright a better deal. I think it was $12 million over 3 years. The Lions decided to match the deal instead of letting Wright go to the 49ers. So with these restricted free agents, you have quite a bit of power to keep them in the building. but not as much as you do with the exclusive rights free agents. And the 49ers' two RFIs, the two RFAs are Jordan Mason and Curtis Robinson. So that is the 49ers roster. And yes, we have a good thought down here. Yes, Purdy is a franchise quarterback. Enough of the emotional responses. The emotional responses, the attention-grabbing responses, I call them histrionics, have just been overboard. Let go of it. Purdy has demonstrated performance ceiling of number 1 QBR, MVP finalist 2023, and this year's number 9 QBR. QBR is a good metric to isolate a quarterback's performance from his team, which is impossible to do fully, but we do it as much as we can. So Purdy between number 1 and number 9, the only quarterback with a tighter distribution there, like a better, more impressive performance floor, performance ceiling distribution, is Josh Allen, who's been number 1 in QBR. That's this year. And the lowest he's been over the past 3 years is number 6. So to have a range from number 1 to number 9 for Brock Purdy, that's pretty damn impressive. And that sets the 49ers up really well. He's going to be the centerpiece, whether you like it or not. And it's going to be a good decision, whether you think it's going to be a good decision or not. Purdy has proven that 49ers are going to go in that direction. That's what every single bit of tape and every single bit of logical analysis tells us. There is no quarterback out there that is perfect, but there are quarterbacks that are excellent, that are very good football players. And Brock Purdy has unquestionably been one of them for the 49ers. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Lombardi Lounge today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lombardi Lounge. All right, that is your first 49ers roster overview. Hope you enjoyed. Share it, like, comment, do whatever you need. This is going to be the type of in-depth coverage that we give you throughout the entire roster retool process. Everybody take care.